Today, GOLDINVEST is talking to Joe Ovsenek, President and CEO of very interesting gold and copper explorer P2 Gold, which is trading on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol PGLD. P2 Gold not only has two very promising copper and gold projects in Nevada and the Golden Triangle of British Columbia, respectively, but also a very experienced management team that has already shown it knows how to be successful in the mine space. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
So, GOLDINVEST has been following P2 Gold for a while now, but I don't think the two of us have done an interest kind before. So please introduce yourself to our audience. Give us a short background on yourself and your team.
Oh, okay. Well, our team's been together for a significant period of time. Ken McNaughton, our Chief Exploration Officer, we've worked together since 1996. We worked at Silver Standard Resources at the time. We took Silver Standard, had a market cap in the 50-60 million range at the time. We left in 2010 to form Pretium Resources. In the meantime, we'd assembled a portfolio of over 2 billion ounces of silver for Silver Standard, and we'd actually taken it from an exploration company to a silver producer. In 2010, early 11, we left to form Pretium Resources, where our team took the Brucejack mine from discovery through to commercial production in under 8 years. So, and Brucejack, Pretium Resources with the Brucejack mine was recently acquired by Newcrest Mining for $2.8 billion US. So, a very successful mine at Brucejack. So that's our background. As I say, we've worked together as a team for quite some time. Michelle Romero joined us in 2004. And our CFO, Grant Bond, joined us in 2016 over at Pretium. So we know how to get things done.
Well, you know how to work together for sure. Okay, then let's talk about P2. Perhaps start with the GAPS project in Nevada that already has a resource on it and which you doubled, I think, to about 2.76 million ounces of gold equivalent with last year's drilling alone. Please give us some information on its location, infrastructure, geological setting, etc.
Oh, we acquired GABS just over a year ago. And there are a few reasons we picked it up, but why we started looking at it, first off, it's in Nevada, a top tier mining jurisdiction. And I think nowadays, jurisdiction is more important than ever. That's why we're focused on Nevada and the Golden Triangle in BC. Infrastructure. Great infrastructure. We have a paved highway through a corner of the property, a well-maintained gravel road down the center of the property, and we actually have a power line running through the property. Everything you need to build a mine. And so we're on that prolific Walker Lane trend in Nevada, great infrastructure, and a nice solid resource, 2.76 million ounces of gold equivalent. When we bought the project, digging in and doing our due diligence, we saw potential for 4 to 5 million ounces of gold equivalent at GABS, and that still is our target.
Okay, well, that's very nice already, and because that's based all on the numbers we talked about are based on drilling you did in 2021. But P2 Gold has been active at GABS this year too, and already presented some very promising drill results so far. Could you please summarize those for us?
Well, I think the big focus on those drill results is we have 4 zones of mineralization. In 2021, we focused our drilling on one of those zones, Sullivan, one of the zones. In 22, we drilled at 2 of the other zones as well as Sullivan. And without getting into the numbers, what we saw is that we put some holes into Sullivan and expanded that. We put some holes into Lucky Strike. Those are just coming out of the lab now. Should be in a position to announce them not too long from now, but it shows that there's potential for growth at Lucky Strike zone as well. And we announced some holes at the Car Body zone down the southern part of the property. Confirm the grade, actually nice grade in the holes, but shows there's potential for growth there as well. So I think the one thing to really get out of this drill program from this year is there's a lot of potential for expansion on this near surface mineralization. And so, that's the stuff that you can get into production quickly and move along.
Sure. But it's still not even June, so there's a lot of work to be done, left to be done, probably for the rest of the year. Can you give us a sort of a plan for gaps? What are you planning for the rest of 2022?
Sure. A couple of things. First off, we're taking we want to show the robustness of the economics at gaps, because even at the size it's at, this 2.76 million ounces gold equivalent in the indicated and inferred categories, even at that size, we've done some work and it looks quite robust as a mine. So we want to get that out in public. In order to talk about that publicly, we need to complete a preliminary economic assessment. And so we're launching that now. We expect to have the results of that in the fourth quarter. If we can move that up to the third quarter, we will. But as of now, we're targeting the fourth quarter for that study. The other thing we have going at GABS that is really interesting and really would be a game changer for the project. In November of last year, and then finishing up in January this year, we did a deep geophysical study using modern exploration techniques and instruments to see down into the earth. The mineralization at three of the zones, Lucky Strike, Sullivan, Gold Ledge, is gold copper porphyry mineralization. This was discovered in the in the 80s and into the early 90s, and everybody agrees this is gold copper porphyry mineralization. What no one's identified to date is where the source of that mineralization is. It's somewhere around the property because we have porphyry mineralization on surface. So we did this deep penetrating geophysical survey, and right in the middle of the property, in between the three zones I just mentioned, we identified a geophysics anomaly at about 450 meters of depth below the surface. When we look at it in section view, if you look on our website, we have our presentation, you'll see a section view of this anomaly. It looks like a typical porphyry intrusive. Now, why that's important is the biggest gold copper mines in the world these days pretty much are gold copper porphyry deposits. So we may be sitting on a big porphyry deposit at depth in the center of our property. So through the rest of this year, while we're working on a preliminary economic assessment, we're putting together a plan of operations, which we will file later in the next few months, which would allow us to, once it's accepted by the Bureau of Land Management, would allow us to drill this anomaly. And so with luck, we're drilling late this year. More likely, we're drilling early next year. But there is potential for something big at GABS, in addition to this 4 to 5 million ounces we're targeting at surface. So exciting times for GABS. We see a lot of potential there.
Certainly sounds like it. Now, the PEA is, as you said, for third or rather fourth quarter of this year. On the way, or as part of that, you're doing metallurgical studies of the ore at GABS, which is an important point that doesn't often get investors excited, as excited as drill results, but at least equally important. You need to know how to best get the metal out of the ore. You had some pretty decent results already. Can you run us through them shortly and tell us if there are any plans to bring the numbers, recovery, extraction up further?
Well, what we've done is there was a lot of metallurgical work done in the late 80s, early 90s at GABS when the property was first looked at. So we have all that data. We did a metallurgical program when we first acquired the property in 2020. And then we've completed an additional metallurgical program, which we just announced the results, which you mentioned. So when we completed our resource estimate, which we announced in February, we built up our cutoff grade, based on metal prices, recoveries, operating costs, and that for Nevada. And at the time, we used a 76% gold recovery on average for the oxide resources and a 48% recovery on average for the copper resources. Now, we've announced the results. We didn't have them in hand when we did our resource estimate. And actually, our recoveries are even better than we've used for that resource estimate. So we're getting, on average, 82% recoveries for gold as high as 89%, the higher grade mineralization that we have at the Sullivan Zone. So those are pretty dang good results for heap leaching in Nevada. So we're quite excited about those results because that will really even improve the, well, it'll make the project even more robust economically. Copper went from 48% up to 59% on average. So again, a nice increase in recoveries. This is a gold project, but it's nice to have that copper alongside because it helps with the economics. So we're excited about the getting these recoveries and putting them into our preliminary economic assessment. I don't think we'll improve them beyond that because those are already excellent results for heap leach gold copper in Nevada.
Well, see, it's good we talk about that because that's putting things in perspective. Okay, so it seems like you're doing well with the GAPS project, moving along nicely there. Could you please tell us about the BAM property then? Nice name, by the way, which you called in your presentation a company maker in the making, after all.
Absolutely. We look at as much as we are excited about moving things forward at GAPS and that, BAM is really, it's all about discovery, and there's nothing like discovery of a big deposit to really add excitement. So we picked up GAPS. We optioned it not long after we launched P2 Gold in 2020. So we optioned the property in July 2020 because it's up in the Golden Triangle, just east of Galore Creek, which is a big gold copper porphyry system, which is owned by Newmont and Teck Corporation, a couple of majors. So we're just to the east. We border them to the east. And historically, there'd been some work on the property in the 60s where in the west and middle, center west of the property, they focused on some high grade gold, but a small deposit. And then in the 80s, there was some focus on in southwest corner of the property on some higher grade gold and some trenches. But nothing ever came of it, nothing held together. But it did show there was some potential for mineralization on the property. So we came in late August 2020, we completed a soil geochemical sampling survey over the western portion of the property, about 5 kilometers north-south, 2 kilometers east-west, sampling every 50 meters with lines 100 meters apart. So a lot of samples, over 1,100 samples. And with that, up in the northwest corner of the property, we discovered a new gold zone, which we called the Monarch Gold Zone, based on soil samples. Now, this is an area of the property that had never been drilled before because it doesn't really stick out. You don't see those flashy showings like you do down in the southern part of the property where there's some high-grade copper sticking out, but good numbers up top. So in July 21, we went back in there with a drill and we drilled 6 holes. 2 in the historical copper zone, and we hit some nice numbers down there. And I think there's some potential for some size. When they were looking at it in the 60s, it was focused on a high-grade small resource. But if you look at it for bulk tonnage, there is potential for something big there. However, our focus is up north in the Monarch Gold, northwest corner of the Monarch Gold Zone. We drilled 4 holes there. All 4 holes hit gold, and that's an area that's never been drilled before. So that's quite spectacular in itself. But one of the holes, hole number 3, intersected 2.63 grams per ton gold over 45 meters with a nice high grade intersect of 9.2 meters at 7.3 grams per ton gold. And this mineralization is coming from surface. So this drilling was purely based on those soil samples. So if you look at our website and our presentation, we have an aerial photo of the Monarch Gold Zone, and we've overlain our high-grade soil samples, well, all our soil samples, but you can see the high-grade ones because we have a color code to them. And so there's a legend in the lower right you can see. So you can see there's a lot more high-grade soil samples we haven't drilled underneath. So our gut feel is that if you look at this whole area, it measures 1,000 meters by 1,000 meters, so it's quite a big size. You could be looking at 3 to 5 million ounces of gold near surface mineralization at BAM. And that's just the near surface. It's epithermal gold mineralization, so we know it's coming off a porphyry system at depth, similar to GAPS. And as I mentioned, the big gold copper mines these days are porphyry deposits. So we have potential for a big porphyry deposit at BAM as well. So that's why we're so excited about it. We've only drilled 4 holes there. All 4 hit gold. We're going back in this summer. We've got 10,000 meters of drilling planned. We're going to start drilling the last week of June, and we'll be drilling straight through to the end of September. So you should be starting to see drill results out of BAM late August, early September. So it's an exciting time for BAM.
And it's good timing for results to come out because everybody will come back into the office from the holidays. Well, let's see if it works out like that. Now, thank you very much for taking us through that. Now let's talk a bit more general because the gold price went up to $2,000 and came back to now just about $1,800 per ounce. Although today is looking quite good. But it's sour the mood in the industry somewhat, especially because they have a much harder time financing themselves if the mood or the environment isn't so great. Where are you with your efforts in that regard? How confident are you of being able to fund all of your plans for 2022? Do you have to go to the market soon?
Well, for BAM, where we have our 8 to 10,000 meter drill program planned, we have the cash set aside. We raised flow-through money in Canada, that tax-preferred financing. And so we have the cash set aside for drilling at BAM. Now for GABS, we're in the process of raising money to fund the preliminary economic assessment. So we announced a few weeks ago a financing. We're raising up to $2 million Canadian to fund the flow-through, to fund the preliminary economic assessment. And management is going to be subscribing for $750,000 of that. Right now, we own over 25% of the company, and we want to make sure that we continue to own over 25% of the company going forward.
Okay, well, then we'll see how that goes. Because with the lower gold and also the copper prices came down a bit, P2 stock did too. I think it had been holding pretty well, holding pretty well for quite some time. Then it dropped down to a level we saw, I think, last in October 2021. Despite all the progress the company has made since then. Give us your personal opinion or perspective on why now might nevertheless be a good time to take a closer look at P2 Gold.
Well, it's an opportunity. We have, if you look at P2 Gold, we have drilling starting up north soon. We're going to have a lot of news through the rest of this year where we have results from BAM, and we're expecting to have quite good results. We also have a PEA coming out later this year on GAB. So there's a lot happening at P2 Gold through the second half of 2022. And at the end of 2022, you're going to have a lot different company than you have now. So with this reduced share price, it really is an opportunity to get in and invest alongside management. As I mentioned, we own over 25% of the company. We've bought all those shares at market prices. I'd say between Ken McNaughton and I, we have $5.5 to $6 million of our own money into the company, and we'll have even more money into the company once we complete this latest private placement. So really, it's a buying opportunity. Whenever you have these events in the markets, I've been around a little while, we saw the same thing happen in 2008 at Silver Standard. Great company, metal prices took a beating, and the markets tanked, and everybody sells. So they need cash, so they'll sell anything that there's a bid on. So unfortunately, that takes all stocks that have some bidding in there down. But hey, it's a good base for us. We know we've got lots of news coming. We're cashed up to drill in the north in the Golden Triangle. So we're just going to keep forging ahead and let our results speak for ourselves.
Okay, well, that certainly sounds like a good closing remark. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.